the United States has a new U.S.-Africa strategy, as announced in December by National Security Advisor John Bolton. The announcement came during a speech at the Heritage Foundation, an American conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C., that is primarily geared towards public policy. Bolton challenged African governments to choose the United States over China and Russia for their commercial, security, and political relations.
Under our new Africa strategy, we will target U.S. funding toward key countries and particular strategic objectives. All U.S. aid on the continent will advance U.S. interest and help African nations move toward self-reliance.
President Trump's critics say noticeably absent from the new plan is any commitment to democratic governance and leadership on the African continent, which is among the leading priorities for Sub-Saharan Africa in 2019. According to a study published by the Brookings Institution's Africa Growth Initiative, Brahima Kuruble, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, explains.
The future of U.S.-Africa relations will be determined more by U.S. policies and actions, or lack thereof, toward Africa than by those of other countries toward Africa.
Despite the criticism, the U.S. administration says it's on course to engage with Africa. Last week, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo welcomed the newly elected President Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo to Washington. They discussed the future of U.S.-DRC relations and expressed their shared interest in partnering together to deliver a better and more prosperous future for the Congolese people. Relief and excitement are spread through Liberian communities across the United States last month after President Trump issued an executive order extending the deadline of the Deferred Enforcement Departure program for 4,000 Liberians living in the United States to March 30th, 2020. The White House also announced that the president's daughter Ivanka Trump would visit Ethiopia and Ivory Coast over 4 days this month for a women's economic empowerment summit in Ivory Coast, led by his daughter. In February, President Trump signed the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative that focuses on advancing female participation in the global economy. In October 2018, U.S. First Lady Melania Trump wrapped up her first visit to Africa that highlighted child welfare and promoted the work of the U.S. Agency for International Development on the continent. Her 4-nation tour included stops in Ghana, Malawi, Kenya, and Egypt. In his first meeting at the White House with a Sub-Saharan African leader, President Trump held talks last year with Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. The leaders reaffirmed and strengthened their commitment to fighting terrorism and violent extremists. President Trump also met last year with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta at the White House for talks on security and trade. The two leaders signed agreements that will see American companies invest in $238 million worth of projects in the East African nation. Political observers said Africa's economic and political clout is growing rapidly, and the continent boasts of a young burgeoning population which by 2050 will make up 25% of the world's population and workforce. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.